Hello, welcome back to AV Club. I'm Olivia. I like to talk about literary fiction and horror books here. And today I'm talking about the 5 books that I read in March. 5 is definitely the lowest number that I've had in a while for a reading month. I think I read 9 books in the first 2 months of the year. However, I would classify this as a very good reading month because I liked everything that I read, including a possibly new favorite book of all time. The first book that I read in March honestly feels like forever ago now. And that is Good Girl by Aria Aber. This book follows Neela, who is a 19-year-old in Berlin, and she was born to two Afghan parents, and she is navigating her world through nightclubs and sex and drugs and books. She is like a very smart, educated young woman. However, she is in this social sphere of other people who seem to be on the outside of society in a way, in terms of like the degree of nightclubs and drugs that's in this book. Is if you do not like reading about drugs, you will not like this book. However, and it's not like I long to read it, but it's something that I can do. Her group of friends, they don't seem outwardly racist necessarily. That they do have, I guess, leftist and free thinkers in the group. However, she feels like she cannot be open with her ethnic identity. And so that is a point of contention throughout the book, as well as her navigating her relationships with her family and not feeling like she really belongs in either world fully. Or not that she doesn't belong, but that she can't be honest about herself in either place. It's definitely also a book that has a problematic relationship with like a power dynamic difference. Not, I mean, she's 19, so she's not, underage or anything like that, but she falls into this kind of toxic relationship with an older writer who she looked up to from a literature perspective. He had like one book of poetry that was like a huge hit a long time ago and has just been kind of coasting since then on his ego and reputation. Um, and so there's that kind of push and pull throughout the book too. I love reading those kinds of stories, and I really liked spending time with Neela. I think that it was like a very chaotic, messy kind of narrative, and I like spending time with her. She felt like a real character, so it didn't really need to go anywhere where I felt like it did anything for me, because I respected what the journey was like for her. So definitely a book if you like to read, um if you want to read like a kind of sleazy Berlin night, like all night nightclub, drug after drug, club after club kind of vibe, then yeah, Good Girl's incredible. The next book that I read in March was, I think it's like my first one that I read of my 25 and for 25 book list that I actually read this year. I did read another one this month though, so congrats to me. But the first one is Perfume, The Story of a Murderer by Patrick Süskind. Oh my gosh. Like, what I knew of this book was that it was like about a guy who makes perfumes and longs to make them from corpses. And that's kind of what I thought it was just kind of like a sleazy, grimy book. However, I was so taken by this. Like, I loved this so much more than I could have anticipated. The main character, Granui, does have the finest nose in Paris, and he can deduce the components of a perfume just by smelling it, and has an encyclopedia of odors stored in his brain. And he starts to work for this perfumer in Paris, who is about to go bankrupt, and also coasted on his early fame for a long time. But the weird thing about Granui as well is that he has no odor. His mom tried to kill him as a baby, and then the wet nurse that was taking care of him through the church refused to take care of him anymore because she was so disgusted with him that he had no odor. And he's just kind of passed along from person to person throughout his life. And he just leaves this incredible line of destruction in his wake as he passes through these people, that all these people that have left him behind or sought to get rid of him, terrible things happen to them, that he seems to like. It's not anything that he has control over. It's just like such a gripping novel because all of these, there's just such like power in it that I think it's so interesting, the idea of like a very powerful nose. It kind of reminds me of like a Lovecraftian old god. These images of old gods that have gaping maws or gaping eyes, so many eyes, like an impossible amount of eyes or teeth, but you don't really get the same kind of thing with a nose. And I feel like that's what this is. Like it feels like this like primal fear of smell. And it's so interesting that we don't get more texts that are about smell because the sense of smell is like our most primal and protective. And so it's also so abstract that it's hard to um put into a visual, and it's even hard to like put it into words, the idea of a smell. And I just felt like this really accomplished that so well, just the how disgusting that can be. And I felt like there's like an easy queer allegory, not allegory, but I feel like there's a very easy queer reading of this, about being so outside of society because you have this sense that no one else has. And how do you capitalize on it? And um, I really love it. And I mean, yes, he ends up killing people for their sense, but that doesn't happen till well into this book. That there's so much that goes on about his methods and just the characterization. I loved this, and it was my first huge period piece win of the month. Like maybe I need to be reading more historical fiction, like dark historical fiction. I think could be something, should be something that I'm looking more into. My next book of the month was the only disappointment for me, and that was Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix. I say disappointment and not just like a full out hate, because I loved the characters that he wrote into this book. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls follows a house for unwed, soon to be mothers in 1970. So this is also a period piece. And the relationships that these girls have, they all have come to be pregnant through different means and have different ideas about what it means to be pregnant coming into this. And there's so many stories about, how if they want to keep the baby or they don't want to keep the baby. There's also this witchcraft component by which they're given a book about witchcraft by a mysterious like library on wheels that comes to the house. And that was like, I just feel very torn about this book. Not to like spoil it really, but these girls really bond over this witchcraft. And then it turns out that it's not necessarily a good, they decide that it's not a good thing for them. That they feel like, I think the idea is that they're being taken advantage of by a lot of different types of people, and to find power within themselves, whatever. So what I had issue with, I'm just going to read my Goodreads review because you know well, I cared so much for the girls, but it's kind of low-key right-wing reactionary vibes. I don't think he meant to do that, but a big why now on a book that disrespects the girls' ability to make decisions for themselves. Not structurally, this is the most interesting part of the book, and makes every girl really want that baby, no matter what they've said before or the circumstances. Women can't trust any women, etc. I'm all for writing whatever story you want, but I don't know that this hits when we're having pro-choice freedoms rolled back. At the end of the day, like, why can't some of the girls just not want the baby? It's very pro-natalist in its messaging, though I don't think that's what he was trying to do. I just, it's not the time for it, I don't think. I just have questions, and it wasn't what I wanted to be reading about. So that's the vibes. And on to my Dewithon reads. My Dewithon read, so Dewithon, if you're not familiar, I did like a whole TBR video for it, but it's a Welsh reading challenge across the whole month. My Dewithon was kind of cut short because the two of the books that I was reading were through the library, and I lost access to my American library online library this month. I think I'll be able to get it back, but what happened was that I was not able to finish reading them on audiobook or ebook, so I was able to finish the book that I already owned a physical copy of, as well as one of the audiobooks, the first of the audiobooks, which was How to Catch a Mole by Marc Hamer. I thought this was lovely, honestly. Um, he does get rid of these moles. So, um, I said that I wasn't really sure how this was going to fit into my feeling of like never really wanting to read any kind of like animal agriculture stuff or anything that's like too gruesome about animal death or anything like that. If it's real life stuff, I don't mind reading it in fiction, but this was a memoir, and I just really appreciated the author. He's actually a vegetarian, I don't think a vegan, so it's like he doesn't want to kill moles or anything, but he felt like someone was going to do it, and he's doing it in, I guess, a more humane way. But it also really covers his life as he lived like homeless for a while and was just traveling around, and this is kind of like how he was able to make a living, is just like not ever getting really close to anyone. And he felt like a kinship with the moles for that reason, that they stay underground, and that their habits are hard to read, that they're mythologized, and talks a bit about that. But it's just overall like a very beautiful meditative book, which is kind of what I was hoping it would be, and I was pleased. And I felt like it was Welsh in nature because it's so much about the countryside. And then on to my last, I think my new all-time favorite book, which I don't know, I would have said it was Rebecca before, and I feel like there's some parallels about why these books really call to me. But my second Dewithon read, and I think my new all-time favorite book, is Fingersmith by Sarah Waters, also on my 25 for 25 book. So I was so right to hold on to this for so long. Fingersmith follows Susan Trinder and Maud Lily. Susan is a fingersmith. She's a thief. She lives in a house of thieves, and their house is visited by someone familiar to them, a con man that they call Gentleman, and he proposes the scheme by which Susan goes to the manor of Maud Lily, who is a unmarried young woman who lives with her uncle, and is going to, as soon as she gets married, she'll have a huge fortune. And so there's a plan where Susan's going to work as a maid for Maud Lily, and Gentleman, who's already doing some painting lessons there, is going to be able to weasel his way into marrying this woman with the help of Susan guiding Maud towards that. That's really all you can say. That's like the first act of this book. There's so many twists and turns. It's like not a thriller, but is like the most gripping, thrilling book, and it's just so beautiful. The relationship between the two girls, like very quickly, um, they become attached to each other in the first act, and so that's a huge point of stress for Susan, is that she's still going along to con this girl that she's starting to have feelings for. They have really this like romantic relationship as well, that's like not spoken about, but it just kind of happens at night that they get close. And oh my gosh, like the feelings that I get whenever I think about these two girls, like as the story progresses, and it's like it gets more and more layers as it goes on. I mean, I would not want to spoil this for anyone, because even though I saw The Handmaiden, which is adapted from this, I was still gagged, gooped and gagged by so many of the twists and turns in this. I just adore it. I adore the mystery of it, the thriller of it. I mean, I understand like book talk stan girlies, like all of the hockey romance stuff. Like that is how I am for these girls, and like I wish there was fan cams for them. That I oh, just I've never felt so moved by by a relationship or really like a book. Like I just feel in my heart that this was like a text that was always there and it was kind of unfurling before me. Like I feel so deeply about this book. Um and yeah, I think it's just my new favorite book of all time. It feels so good. I think I do love a historical fiction whenever it comes to romance more. Like I love the tension of it, and like every slight touch or anything just like means so much more. And it really did it for me. It really did it for me. I like this isn't a romance or a thriller. It's just like it's everything. Like the plot is so good and the characters are so good. I need to read like everything that Sarah Waters has written because I think that other of her books hit the same tone. If I've seen Tipping the Velvet, which I remember also being kind of sapphic, and it was historical fiction as well. So I think that's where I need to go next. But I mean, how could I not say that March was an incredible reading month? If I think everything was a 4 star except for this was a 5 star, and Witchcraft for Wayward Girls I didn't rate because I don't know. I think it just was not hitting at this time. So um I'm just so pleased. It's like one of those things where it did kind of put me in a book hangover because like this is so good that anything else just is not quite so delicious at this time. However, April is going pretty well as as well, and it just makes me so happy that we have books and that I get to read, and that there's to know that even whenever you're at the ripe old age of 32, that you can still find books that are just like so novel to you, that really move you, and that there's always going to be more books out there that that could be my new favorite book. Like that's incredible. So that was everything I read in March. Kind of a shorter reading month, but that's okay. um yeah, I would love to hear what your last 5 star read was. I'd love to know what your favorite book of all time was. Like what kind of books become all-time favorite books. But anyway, yeah, chat with me down in the comments, and yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.